Score more for less with our NK News Shop discount campaign. Ready to upgrade your wardrobe with some unique flair? At the NK News Shop, podcast listeners buying any 2 items from our t-shirt or hoodie collections will snag their third for half off. Whether you're eyeing our North Korea-themed gear for yourself or as gifts, now is the perfect time to act. Don't miss out. Head to shop.nknews.org and make the most of this limited time offer. That's shop.nknews.org. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News podcast. I'm your host Jacco Zwetsloot and this episode was recorded on Tuesday the 27th of August 2024. Joining me here in the studio today is Anton Sokolin. Anton, welcome back on the show.
Hey Jacco, how are you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic, thank you. Let's see, where shall we start our journey through the latest news on North Korea today?
Well, probably the biggest highlight would be Kim Jong Un personally overseeing the testing of new suicide drones in North Korea.
Okay. Yeah, there's some photographs that have been released. Tell us about these drones. What's new about them?
So yeah, the photographs have been released, that's true. The only problem with trying to identify them is that the images were blurred. But still...
Images of the actual drones?
Of the actual drones were a bit blurred, so it's a bit hard to make out the details, but we still can...
You mean they're deliberately being blurred by the North Koreans?
Well, I suppose they don't want to disclose their secrets, right? So trying to keep it close to the chest, so... But apart from that, yeah, still we can try to make out some details, and it's a bit speculative, and I'm strongly suggesting our listeners to stay tuned in and watch out for new articles by my colleagues who will be actually tackling this issue in detail. But for now, we know that these drones, some of them at least, resemble certain models that used by the Israeli military, for example, because of the certain position of their wings and how they fold during in flight. So there could be, so maybe we could speculate that the production of those drones at least it was inspired by certain foreign examples. Another interesting thing I would like to mention about these drones is that while testing, they were hitting specific targets, right? And they showed quite a good high degree of precision.
So these drones are they're designed to carry an explosive,
right?
To hit some kind of a target, perhaps a building, and then blow it up.
Yeah, it's an unmanned aerial vehicle, right? So it functions pretty much the same way as any other drone. It delivers a certain payload, drops, the target is bombed, right? And in this particular testing, we could see how those drones actually strike South Korean K2 Black Panther tank.
Okay.
A mock-up, of course, of it. Yeah. It's quite interesting.
But in this case, it's actually the drone is not dropping a bomb on the tank. The drone itself is smashing into the tank. Is that right?
Those details, Jacco, you are always very precise about those things. I can't answer this definitively.
Okay. But when we call it a suicide drone, I'm thinking of a plane, or rather the drone hitting into and no longer existing after
that would make sense. That would make most sense.
Okay. Have we seen the footage of them flying, or just photographs?
I have seen only photographs, but probably my colleague Colin Zverko, who was extensively covering this event, maybe he could tell you a few more things about it. Another thing about these drones, not really precisely about these drones, but about Kim Jong Un, is his proposition to use more AI and artificial intelligence and incorporating it into the development of these drones. And not only those, but also underwater unmanned vehicles, which kind of marks an interesting trend, because we know that many other foreign, for example, armies in the world have used AI, have integrated it. The latest we know that, for example, the Ukrainian army in the battlefield in Donbass does use AI to coordinate their attacks and the work of their drones. So that's not quite new, but it means that North Korea is staying up to date with recent technologies.
Yeah, okay. And in these photographs, we see Kim Jong Un himself wearing a white suit.
That's right.
Some people commented on his fashion choices there. Also a white hat. Some people said that he looked like he was perhaps a chef in a hotel kitchen. But it should be pointed out that his father, Kim Jong Il, I don't think he wore white suits, but his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, certainly wore white suits from time to time. So this is, once again, perhaps harking back to the image of his grandfather.
That's absolutely right. We could many observers have already pointed out that Kim Jong Un tries to sort of follow the example of his late grandfather, especially in his choice of fashion and how he, for example, holds his cigarettes, the manner of talking, sitting, his posture, and of course, clothes as well. And those suits, we can see them pretty much all the time. It does reflect his certain understanding of fashion dictated by his probably late grandfather.
Yeah. Okay, all right, let's move on to our second story then, which I think we're going to talk about the Russian students.
Right. So before we do that, I would just like to remind our listeners that Russia and North Korea have been very active, right? And they have been trying to ramp up their relations. They have been very close, and these relations, they don't only focus on military aspects, right, but also include humanitarian cooperation, meaning different, agricultural delegations go and visiting each other, some scientists, technicians, and of course students as well.
And the first tourists were welcomed from Russia.
That's right.
After the corona pandemic.
Very good point. Yes, and tourists as well. So, and now we are seeing that this cooperation also extended into this education sphere, where a group of Russian students from an elite diplomatic school in Moscow arrived in Pyongyang, and
How
actually
many?
there is just a few of them. There is only 5 of them, and now at this moment they are actually studying in North Korea right now. They are supposed to be staying there until I think early September, something like around those days. And
are they at? Do we know which school they're at?
Yes, it's the Moscow International Relations Institute.
Do we know which school in Pyongyang they're studying at?
Oh, of course, the Kim Il-sung University. Of course, the best one.
Okay, so this, correct me if I'm wrong, but our friends of the podcast, Andrei Lankov and Georgi Toleraya, haven't they both studied there past?
At Kim Il-sung Day?
I think so.
I know definitely that our common friend Georgi Toleraya has studied at the Moscow University, at the Moscow State Institute of Foreign Relations, International Relations, and Professor Lankov is from a different city. He studied at Leningrad University, and I'm sure if they had an opportunity to study in North Korea, and I think they did, they would have eventually ended up studying at Kim Il-sung University.
So there's a long tradition of going back to the Soviet times.
Absolutely.
Of a handful of Russians going to Pyongyang and studying for at least a semester at Kim Il-sung University.
Absolutely. And it continued until recently, right? So all the way up until like 2019-20. Many Russian students from this particular school would go to Kim Il-sung Day and practice their Korean. Mostly it's just a language exchange program. They just focus on improving their the North Korean variety of the Korean language.
Right.
But what's interesting is that this particular university pays a lot of attention to actually improving the language skills of its students, not only in the North Korean variety of Korean language, but also in the South Korean variety. Because they also do dispatch their students to South Korea, to South Korean universities. And this particular batch of kids is very interesting because all of them, pretty much all of them, I can't say all, but the majority of them, they have studied in South Korea for at least one semester. I think they went for an exchange program last year, and as far if I'm not wrong, my understanding is that some of them studied at the
University of Foreign Studies.
Foreign Studies, yes, that's the one.
Wow. Okay, so these are students who have previously been in South Korea,
right,
and now they're in North Korea,
right.
So they're really getting both worlds.
That's right, and one of our commentators who commented on the article that I was writing said that that gives them a really unique opportunity to be well versed in both Koreas, but clearly we are seeing that the shift has happened. So the Russian diplomacy pays a lot more attention to North Korea these days, and it means that it is really possible that the Russian professionals, Russian diplomats are going to be dominating this field for quite a long time because they have direct access to the country, right?
Right. So we can imagine that these young students will at some stage in the future be sent as Russian diplomats to North and or South Korea.
That's right. This batch of students, they had a meeting with Russian diplomats in Pyongyang.
And those of course, the embassy never closed during the pandemic, so they've been there all the time.
Absolutely, and they invited them for tea. And over during this little tea party, they also kind of... Of course, they would say this a bit of a courtesy, but I found it quite entertaining that they said, "Oh, we wish to see you here when you graduate."
Right. The Hubei diplomats. Did you meet any of them when they were here in South Korea last year?
No, not absolutely. No.
You don't know any of these people?
I think it's a bit of a different age group.
Well, sure, but still, I mean, it's. I thought it would be interesting anyway. Gosh, what an experience that must be for them.
They are very active online.
And if you
take a look at our article, you can find their social media and actually check out. Some of them are at least try to become aspiring YouTubers, and some of them are very active on Instagram, our Russian Messenger, Telegram. So keep an eye on them if you want to know what it's like to study in North Korea.
I wonder if any of them will accidentally say the wrong thing on a video or a blog and end up being first arrested, then questioned, and then thrown out of the country, like the student Alex Sigley was back in, when was that, 2019?
Well, we're comparing apples and oranges here, Russians and Australians.
Yes. It is true that Russians do have special dispensation in North Korea. Gosh. Okay. All right. And what should we talk about next?
And the next one, so I'm sure our readers and our listeners, they are very well aware of the humanitarian situation in North Korea,
right?
And especially,
the flooding.
Of course, recent flooding
in the north, the far north of the country, right near the border with China.
We would even, if we want to precisely pin it down, that it would be northwest of the country.
Okay.
And there have been multiple reports, right, by the North Korean state media saying that, of course, the damage has been done. Certain people got stranded. They were displaced. State media also touted, of course, the government's efforts to relocate them to safe zones and put them in these shelters and evacuation centers. It's thousands of people. And when we talk about this, for us, for example, at least for me, someone who watches the humanitarian situation and actually food security situation in the country, this issue becomes absolutely important.
Is that area, sorry to interrupt, is that area important for agriculture?
I will get to this.
Okay.
To answer your question, it is important, and also it has a certain, let's say, limited importance, because obviously the composition of crops and farmland is uneven, right?
Okay.
So of course, more to the north, you will see more mountains. There is practically nothing growing there.
Right.
And more to the south, you will see more farmland, valleys where crops are abundant. And what has been interesting is that the Food and Agriculture Organization, it's the UN, it's a UN body, recently said that certain crops in those regions that were affected by flooding actually have been damaged, and they are key crops, and that could absolutely shake up the whole food security situation in the country. But then we are seeing somewhat conflicting reports from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which did this geospatial analysis and compare different vegetation levels, also moisture levels, and analyzed whether those particular areas were that much affected. And their conclusion is that North Korea suffered minimal damage, and even though those particular areas did suffer, it won't have a huge impact on nationwide. So they are expecting that rice and corn production is going to stay pretty much at the same level as last year's, and that North Korea is probably going to edge this situation and dodge the blow, and will probably fare pretty well through the season. But of course, it remains to be seen, and we need to still keep an eye on this, because there could be some more unfavorable weather conditions could actually undermine the harvest and agricultural efforts. But at this point, it seems like at least the Americans were quite upbeat about the situation, and they analyzed that only certain isolated, localized areas of this northwestern region suffered serious damage, whereas other regions that are also considered breadbasket areas, they have managed to dodge the blow.
Wow, okay. What do we know about whether there's any humanitarian aid coming in from Russia or China to those areas?
That's a very interesting question, actually, because there are clearly rumors that Russia may have supplied something, and we know that Russia once in a while supplies either grain or cattle. That happens. We don't know on what conditions, whether it's just aid or whether it's trade. We don't know whether North Korea pays for that.
Yeah.
I am not aware of any aid coming in from China. I know the trade is on. North Korea keeps buying stuff and keeps exporting stuff. At the same time, we know that multiple international organizations and actually Russia have offered their help, and Kim Jong Un said no. Not only to like South Korean organizations, international like Red Cross, right? But also to Russia. He said, we will manage. We will ask you if we need it. Which indicates that maybe the situation is not dire, that they are not ready to go to those lengths when they actually need to let these foreigners in and cooperate with them and let them snoop around. So that also kind of adds this element of whether, well, it sort of sows a bit of a doubt whether this calamity was as serious as it was claimed, and whether it wasn't just used by Kim Jong Un as a publicity stunt to basically project his cult of personality onto people, saying that, showing him on the boat, going to save people, going to talk to people, trying to console them.
Okay, well, we've got a little bit of time left for one very short last story. What would you like to talk about?
Yes. And this one is particularly interesting. For the first time ever, Canada actually received North Korean defectors and helped them resettle in the country. It's a absolutely private initiative. It's not a government project, but a few people who are believed to be mostly women, managed to go to Canada, and now they have been connected with surrogate families, if we can call them surrogate families,
foster families,
families who help them adapt to the country and build their life from bottom up. And it shows that Canada is joining this movement because it's already the third country in the world that's done it. The US has a similar scheme, and of course South Korea accepts defectors in droves.
So do you know how they got to Canada? I mean, obviously you can't just get on a plane from North Korea and get there. So how did they get to Canada?
Right. Usually there is like several ways North Korean refugees get out of North Korea and end up in different countries, right? So the one traditional way is China, and they usually go via China, go to the South Korean embassy, state their case, and they're usually sent to South Korea from where they can go wherever you want.
Right.
Another way is we are Southeast Asia, and particularly Thailand is very very welcoming and accommodating. So they also go through the South Korean embassy in Thailand, and they usually end up in South Korea, and then they can choose, and probably that was the case. In this particular story, we are not very sure how it exactly happened, because probably of security reasons.
Right.
But the media reports mentioned that a Southeast Asian country has been involved in this case. So we probably can say it was Thailand.
Okay, probably, but maybe, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
And do we know the name of the group that helped these people over to?
Yes, it is a group called Han Voice.
Han Voice, okay.
Yes, and very well known. And we are wishing all the best success for these resettlers.
Yes, good luck to those refugees. And I'd like to speak to Han Voice on the podcast.
Please come join.
Yes. Okay, thanks very much for coming on the show today, Anton Sokolin.
Thank you very much, Jacco.
In the intricate world of Korean affairs, tailored intelligence makes all the difference. Korea Risk Group's consulting services offer specialized, actionable intelligence designed to guide your Korea-related decisions. We provide bespoke consulting services that cater to your unique challenges and goals. From policy analysis to market entry strategies, we bring clarity to complexity. Transform uncertainty into opportunity and visit careerpro.com solutions today. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.